call the March 20th work session to order. First thing tonight, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance, now to be led by Mr. Steve Solomon.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Okay. Let's go through the agenda in just a minute. So, anything on the consent agenda anybody wants to talk about? Questions? Do have one change on the coaches list. Mr. Tackett inadvertently left off Tanner Grazier, boys soccer, Stewart's Creek High School. So, okay, move right along then. Or not, we'll do visitors, then recognition. Number 8, YMCA site approval.
Okay, YMCA site approval. YMCA of Middle Tennessee has requested an opportunity to provide after-school and summer services at Rocky Fork Elementary School. Pursuant to the current contract, the YMCA will pay the Rutherford County Board of Education $2 per week per child based on the average number of children in attendance each week from the 2019 school year through the summer of 2021. If approved, this will be the 25th Rutherford County school hosting the YMCA.
Okay, any questions on that? Comments? Okay, number 9.
All right, number 9, Stop It Solutions contract. Stop It is a mobile and web-based incident software that allows students administration to communicate anonymously to maintain a positive school climate. Students can report anonymously via mobile app or phone hotline service for bullying, cyberbullying, inappropriate teacher-student relationships, violence and threats, hazing, weapons possession, drug and alcohol substance abuse, and tolerance discrimination. This package also includes dedicated incident training service which reviews and triages incoming reports. Stop It will provide a streamlined process and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the investigations with Stop It case management system. Contract details August 1st through 29th, 2019 through July 31st, 2020. Total contract fees total is $25,850.
Questions, comments?
Yes. Does this interface with any of their social media accounts? So it's a standalone app.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question about this as well. Were you finished, Michelle?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
If the reporting is anonymous, what is the process that this company uses to verify validity of the complaints? I mean, I could see something like that turning into a free-for-all, I'm going to get back at somebody kind of thing, reporting, trying to get somebody in trouble and not having to be accountable for your accusations. Does that make sense?
One of the things I talked to them about was false reporting, that kind of thing. I did talk to Wilson County Schools. It's in use in Bedford and Wilson nearby. There's also a number of other counties that are using it. They said there's been very little incident of that. They said right when they first got it, there was 1 or 2, and after that, it discontinued. It is, if you check anonymous on the app when you make the listing or the report, it is truly anonymous, and that is something that I've brought up to them. But after talking to Wilson County Schools in particular, I was more comfortable with the thought of that going forward. We have had that kind of concept in the past with drop boxes and so forth in the schools, where they could drop a lead into it for the SRO to look at. We haven't had too much trouble with the false reporting incident, and those things usually come out in the wash. We're able to, if it's something serious, we can make an arrest, file a false report. The triage system will also look into this and see if it seems squirrely or whatever. They'll get back. It does allow for two-way dialogue with the poster, and they'll get back to them and try to investigate a little further in questions and see if they answer. So the triage service I thought was very much worthwhile. It was just a slight bit more. I think it was 15 cents more per student for the annual contract. But after going through that process, a principal would not be alerted for somebody who had a minor situation that they were reporting so-and-so as being bullied. They wouldn't be wakened at 3 in the morning. A call, whereas if there was a direct threat that was one of concern, that would be put through and triaged to them immediately.
Where's this management system located? Is it here?
No, this is based out of New Jersey, actually.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few more questions. Do you have any statistics on how many events they have prevented, and how old is this company?
This company, it belongs to a parent company. And the company that it belongs to is, I believe they said it was 20 years old. I don't know, Stop It itself is a sub of them. I don't know how old that sub is actually. They're able to provide a lot of figures on a per school basis. I didn't see anything that was concerning when I looked through their figures. I couldn't give you an exact figure right now.
In the chain of command, if it's something, would it come to you first and then to Mr. Spurlock, or how does that chain?
It would go to me and to the principal if it's a serious threat sort of situation. If it's bullying or something that's internal to the school, it would just go to the principal. So the triage goes through and notifies the appropriate parties.
Thank you. The cost of the contract, that's an annual?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we locked in for any period of time, or do they have the option to go up on those fees after?
They could after
year?
1 year. It is a 1-year contract.
The other counties that have been references for this, have we talked to them at all about that? Have any of them had it in place more than a year?
Yes, Wilson County has for several years, and this is actually, we leveraged off of Wilson County's pricing on this. The original price that he gave me was a little higher than this.
Good.
And he was able to,
But had they increased their prices after a year?
they have not, is what they told me. He actually came off, I think he came off about 40% off the original. So I'm sure there was some margin built in there to begin with.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Says on here up to 49 schools and 45,000 students.
He did his basis on 47,000, and when I saw that, I saw, well, he's a little off, and I asked him about it, but it didn't change the contract amount. I was good with that. I told him we could be facing 49,000 next year, in fact. It doesn't go up if we get more students. It stays static for that year.
Okay.
One of the things I do want to point out on this is the state is looking at us to provide something like this for our students. After meeting with Brenna Morse, the state school safety director, a couple of weeks ago, that was one of the things that they have pointed out. There are some possible options in the future that are coming from the state of Tennessee, but they are not yet in place. And this is something that I recommend we go with sooner rather than later.
I might point out we had pretty good representation on our Rutherford County team down there a few weeks ago.
Mention, yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Parent notification system.
Okay, the Parent Notification System contract, tab 3. Rutherford County Schools conducted an RFP in November 2018 for its parent notification system. This district has been using School Messenger West for the past 11 years. A committee made up of central office personnel and principals have evaluated proposals and selected School Messenger West as the best service provider for Rutherford County Schools. The notification system provides the district with the ability to send messages directly to parents via phone, email, text, newsletters, and through social media, and is an invaluable component of the district's communication plan. Previously, the service through School Messenger West cost the district $66,500 annually. The new proposal will save the district $9,000 at the rate of $1.25 per student for a total first-year cost of $57,500.
Okay, any questions on that? I like saving money.
That was my first question, coming down off the price. Mr. Evans, can you elaborate a little bit there?
Sure. So through the RFP process, there's 2 or 3 larger players in this arena for this kind of product, and they were all competing for our business, and so we got a better price. And we're getting more, this provider especially provided us with some other information on some features that we didn't know we had that they're going to train us on, so we're getting more for less, which is great. And by my figures, even if we grow by 1,000 to 1,200 students a year, it would take 6 or 7 years for it to even approach what we've been paying. So we'll see this savings over and over for the next several years.
What will the cost be on the second year?
$1.25.
It's $1.25 per student, so if we go
we
up
get
1,000
1,000
students,
more
it would be
students.
$12.50 more.
Okay,
That's locked in, that rate is locked in, based on how many students we have.
all right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Facilities use.
All right, facility use approved for exemption pursuant to Board Policy 3.206, Public Education Schools and Institutions, Post-Secondary Education Institutions, Private Universities, Colleges, Governmental Entities, or Agencies that provide benefits to the Rutherford County School System or have an in-kind relationship approved by the Director of Schools may request the Board of Education to allow an exemption from the use of facilities fee, which the Board may allow or deny based upon details of the specific request. The following groups qualify for the exemption: Rutherford County Works, Cyber Ambassadors Boot Camp, Boy Scouts Troop 320, Annual Silent Auction and Spaghetti Dinner, Blackman Youth Football Cheer League, 2019 preseason and season at BES, BMS, and BHS.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Just to follow up on the youth football, I think we all know that they've pledged, sponsored the task of the turf field at Blackman High School. So that was the in-kind there for them.
No other questions? We'll move on to financial matters.
All right, financial matters, tab 4, substitute teacher staffing services. After evaluating the responses we received our RFP for substitute teaching staffing services, staff recommends that the contract for substitute teacher staffing services be awarded to Staff EZ, formerly PESG, for their alternate proposal for the 2019-20 school year. The contract will have an option to renew for 2 further years. Staff thinks this is the best proposal because it should be the most successful in maintaining a high fill rate. Under the alternative plan, the bonuses that PESG are currently paying to hard-to-fill schools would continue to be paid by PESG out of their administrative fee. Since there is a performance penalty, they will have an inducement to continue improving their fill rate. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Mr. Sandvig? Dr. Anthony?
Okay. On the total fees, I looked at the previous 10-week period and did a weighted average and then extended it, taking that,
There were 46 school days in that period, extending it to 180 day basis, just trying to give an evaluation. And those dollar amounts are that annualized cost based on those 10 recent weeks. And then that was half of the weight, I'm sorry, to change the weight, that was possible 50 points out of 90 points. So you can see the ratings under that total point line as far as cost. And then I took that 50 points and whatever percentage they went up over that, under that. So it went from 50 spur, the fifth column over was the lowest cost per cost, and the Staff Easy alternate just for cost is the highest. And the reason we went with this alternate proposal 3 years ago, we felt that it would generate a higher fill rate. And they do have that financial inducement to meet the fill rate. I think it was either last week or the week before, Kim Woodson copied me on her email, where that day they were offering a $30 bonus for one of the hard-to-fill schools in Laverne to get subs. That comes out of PESG's money. We do not pay those bonuses. And that is one of the things that I like about the alternative plan. When we were looking at fill rates, our fill rate was running 6 percentage points higher with PESG than it had under Advantage XPO. And we felt that was worth the money. The next item down is meet record-keeping requirements. One of the things that PESG added for us, we have always had a required upload format. It's uploaded into our payroll system to update everyone's teacher leave days and other types of leave. And of course, we uploaded it to get it into the general ledger. With the size right now, the file can run 1,800 to over 2,000 lines for a 2-week period. It's massive. So PESG developed the workflow. So when a teacher requests a sub, there's the PESG software generates the leave form electronically, which blanks are filled in, and then it is routed to the principal for his or her approval. And then it is stored with the detail. I think we set a 6-month limit on that. What we used to do, and this was in my department, once you take a couple of reams of paper and people sign them, we would send up stacks that high twice a month to the courthouse. The courthouse would then enter those in manually. Because part of it we could upload, part of it had to be done manually. By getting this in the workflow, it has reduced their work and grown. Ms. Nolan, the county finance director, felt she would have to add a payroll position if we lost that functionality. I did stress that at the meeting we had with the potential providers for the contract when we went over the RFP. And 5 of them, from the questions, and we did follow-ups trying to clarify what was in the RFP, 5 of them satisfied me that they promised me we would have that workflow piece. The other 5, from the comments we got back, I took it more, they felt their system already delivered all the information we need. Our courthouse has required this leave form, which we've now been doing electronically for, this is the 3rd year. So it's not perfect, but it works pretty well. So that was, on the accounting side, a major differentiating point for me. The other differentiating point that I mentioned at that conference when we met potential vendors was what would you do to help staff? What in your proposal will help us staff hard-to-fill schools get and keep the fill rate up? And those were my emphases at that conference. The final 3 points, I'll turn over to Dr. Anthony.
And so in our areas, we were looking specifically at fill rates, the recruitment, the training and retaining, and the employee-related issues. When we examined all their proposals, I felt like Staff EZ and ESS were the top choices when it came to the fill rates for large systems. They had several systems in the state. We had some that were out of state, such as in Michigan and Oregon, and I even had one company that I could not get anybody to call me back, which is not a good sign because I called them continuously for 2 weeks. But most of the other ones, other than Staff EZ and ESS, their fill rates were running about 85, sometimes 82. And in those cases, they saw declines in the last 2 or 3 years of 5 percentage points going down in their decline in ability to, because of the economy, to be able to find enough substitutes. One of the other areas we look for is, we've hired 668 of PSG's employees in the last 3 years, either through for our classified or those who will be getting their teaching license. And so there's not a penalty that they charge us for that. When it came to recruitment, retaining, and training, we felt like in the top 3, we were looking at Staff EZ, ESS, and Parallel, because they also did a combination of, they did in-person training, which was very important to us because some of the other vendors, they did only online, so there never was a face-to-face sit-down training. And these 3 especially had training, and PSG had also additional online training to further their abilities, and at our request is always added those additional ones. So we feel like the face-to-face in our department is very important because it stops a lot of the initial bad hires. So we like the face-to-face. And then another area our department was looking at is the employee-related issues, such as the corrective actions. Unfortunately, sometimes there's issues with substitutes, and the ability to be able to remove them not only from the school, but also from the system. The ease with working with a company on dealing with a discipline issue that may go further up. As you can imagine, the same kind of issues that we have with our, over 5,000 employees, they have with substitutes. And so we felt like mainly Advantage and Kelly, as well as Staff EZ, were the top contenders in those areas. Even a shining star for Spur is they have a counseling ability that they have building into as they're dealing with their discipline, and then trying to train them on issues if they're minor to be able to restore them to those positions. So Spur really stood out on that item. So those were kind of our areas, and we were 30 points out of the 80 points total, the 90 points total, excuse me.
Mr. Sanby, it was requested of me to check about our ability to do our own in-house. So, can you tell me what that would look like as far as the cost?
On the administrative side, I talked to Ms. Nolan about that. In addition to something to hand, if we had to go back to the paper leave sheets, she felt she needed someone for those.
We are kind of on that cusp at the courthouse and here in the payroll office here. We have handled the growth. Ms. Nolan added a payroll position a few years back. She thinks she would have to add another one. That would be probably another 1,000 employees or more, because you often can't get anyone to come in. So just on the payroll processing side, probably 3 employees with benefits, you're talking $40,000 to $50,000 a year for those 3. Dr. Anthony, well, if you want us to switch on this part, it's more.
Okay, so there's some possibilities on the end where we could have a calling center at the central office and hire maybe 5 or 6 that could be doing the calling for all 49 schools, or we could look at implementing maybe a 4-hour position, a classified position at each of the schools, so as the need arises, they can be able to help fill in those items. Of course, that would include us needing additional staffing for the training of them and the disciplining of them, because that's a whole nother 1,000 to 1,200, which is correct. Usually you want 3 times what the normal sub rate is. So if you're on the average missing 300 or 400, you're wanting anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200. So if you did, like I said, in the district, you're looking about 5 or 6 callers. Usually that time frame would be early in the morning, late in the evening to fill those gaps, which would typically again be at the $40,000 to $50,000 rate, as you said.
So somewhere around, just at the schools themselves, if you're doing the 4 hours, you're talking about approximately 24 full-time.
I think 800,000, we'd have to basically pay for the sub-software. And one of our vendors did not include that in the bid, one of the lower ranked ones.
Of that, in additional charge, that's what I should change the way you did on that. But the space for where we would put people is going to be another issue. I think we discussed that 3 years ago in this issue. There are quite a few downsides. Most of the systems that we have talked to that do it themselves do not approach the fill rate. So we tend to get outside contractors.
I polled also our state HR employees, and they said towards the end of the month when they're doing it in-house, they're getting at about a 68 to 70% rate towards the end of the month because of the amount of days that they've had to work and not following all those procedures with law. That's true.
So,
Go ahead.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that same line, if we did it in-house, they're going to be run through Rutherford County School Board payroll, correct? So would we not also be liable for be on the hook for benefits? So we haven't even factored that in to that question.
Right. And the providers, if those employees hit that 30-hour-a-week mark, have to provide an acceptable plan.
That's something they monitor and oversee.
Which is why the districts are seeing that lower rate at the end of the month because of the day's work too.
Couple questions, I guess.
Right here.
Just curious, what happened to PSG, the Staff
Ms. Kim Woodson is here.
Mr. Hodge, the reason why we're changing our name is because PESG is an acronym, and we get called PEGS, we're called everything, and it takes about 15 minutes out of every presentation to explain our acronym. So when we say Staff Easy, what do you think of? We make staffing easy. And so this is something that we have wanted to do for a long time, is to make our name easier to understand, and when someone hears our name, they know what we do.
All right. Also, where are we at on the fill rate right now?
We're about 94, 95%.
At 7 a.m.
At 7 a.m. It drops during the afternoon because anyone can put an absence in all the way up to the end of the day, and sometimes even after school is over, they put an absence in for someone they didn't realize that was out. And that does go against our fill rate. We do not go back in and edit that and take those out. That is true. It's live data. What you see anytime you pull it up is live data. So the reports that you have access to, we do not manipulate the data, and we do not hide it. It is full disclosure at any time.
All right, next question. As far as the contract goes, there's nothing in our task, correct? An actual contract?
No, sir.
Are we going to get a copy of it?
Yes. I didn't think of that. I'm sorry.
Mr. Hodge, what was the question again? I'm not sure I heard you.
Which one?
The one you just asked.
The contract.
You said, is there something in it
copy of it was on a computer.
Oh, okay.
If y'all would like those tonight, I can go make copies.
I'd just like to look over it.
Absolutely, and I didn't think of that. My apologies.
As we continue down here, you know, I don't know how long the contract is. It doesn't say in our notes, but it says the contract will have an option to renew for 2 further years.
Yes, we always do this as an annual contract with 2 renewals, and then go out with another request.
So that's our renewal and theirs, or?
I guess either party could not renew, but we typically bring the renewal to you in early spring, late winter. We had a provider that we did not.
We went out for another RFP. We did not exercise the option for a second year because we had some issues, major issues. But typically we have renewed for 2 years, so it's going to wound up being the same proposal for a 3-year period.
My objective is to get to 100%. We're at 94, 95, and this company has made great strides to get toward that goal, but we're not there, and I don't think they'll get us there. So we got to look at other ways to get to that 100%, because that tells me we got classrooms sitting around without teachers or without anybody supervising, and they're having to really get creative to cover those classrooms. So there's other options out there. When I was in the manufacturing world, we used 2 or 3 temporary services. We knew one temporary service could not fill the jobs. So we would use 2 or 3, whatever it took to fill the jobs, because we couldn't shut Nissan down. I feel like we owe the same commitment to our students. We need to have somebody in the classroom. So we need to be looking at other ways that we can cover this. Another thing we could look at, not getting into the staffing business, I'm not suggesting that at all, but I think we can, hard to fill positions, I think we can hire an EA, put an extra person on the staff, and let them be a floater and fill in for these subs that are not showing up, or the teachers that are not showing up. So there's a lot of things we can do here. I just want us to get creative and look at what we can do to fix the problem, because we've made great strides, but we're still not at 100. So that's where I'd like to see us focus.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a few questions. Ms. Woodson, going back to, and when I look at this, and first of all, I guess we were aware that these RFPs had gone out, but I wasn't aware this was going to come up on our agenda so quickly for a vote, and I had expressed to Mr. Sandvig earlier that I would like to see at least the finalist candidates' copies of the RFPs. And with us having a board meeting so quickly on the heels of this one, normally we have a day or two in between to look over these things or to consider those factors before we actually take a vote on it. So I'm not sure at this point that I'll be prepared to vote by tomorrow night regardless. So I guess kind of my first question is, what's our deadline here? What are we working with? Can we postpone the vote till the next board meeting?
Yeah, we could defer to the next meeting. Would y'all like copies of all 7?
Well, I certainly want to see at least the 3 finalists that you're referring to. I'm assuming you got 10 altogether, is that correct?
No,
we had 8.
8, you're sorry.
I think we had 1 show up at the meeting, did not turn in a proposal, and we may have had, I did not check the newspaper, we may have had someone send a proposal without.
Well, and I understand that statistically with those kind of RFPs, if there were 8, there were at least a few of them that didn't meet the thresholds to begin with, so.
Pretty decent shape this year. 3 years ago, we had
contractual issues that ruled out several of them.
Right.
Yeah.
But not this time?
Have that this time, no. So maybe
I would like to see them all then. I don't know about fellow board members, but I want to look at all of them. I keep going back to then I was a little taken aback by the name change. And the way it's worded in here, it says, staff recommends that the contract for substitute teaching services be awarded to staff, is it Staff Easy? Is that how you're pronouncing it? Formerly PESG. So is it truly just a name change, or has there been a change in ownership of the organization?
No, ma'am, it's just a name change.
Okay, so is it being made, because I know you guys you have operations in a lot of different areas in the country.
We do.
Are all of the PESG operations changing
Yes,
the name then? Okay.
I wanted to be very transparent that we weren't trying to pull a switch on you, call.
Well, no, and I wasn't, I certainly was not suggesting.
I know you weren't saying it, but that's why I phrased it that way.
I just wanted to better understand it, because if it truly is different ownership or under a different management team, I think it begs the question again of, are we going to continue to enjoy the same level of service that we have from PESG and their staff? So obviously Ms. Woodson's still here, so that's encouraging. I do want to go back for a moment to Mr. Young's point about backup suppliers. And I know we had talked about this before, Ms. Woodson, and that concerns me too. And I know 100% fill rate is, it's challenging, but along those lines, do you all use any backup suppliers to assist when that happens and you can't get jobs filled?
Not currently, but we have implemented permanent subs at our hard-to-fill schools. We have implemented premier subs, those who are outside of the calling system that we call every morning. Our staff calls those and places them in the absences that come in that morning. And that has been very effective in bringing up the fill rate and keeping it high consistently throughout the month. We pay $30 extra a day for those permanent subs to go to a school and be available for that school. And as we know, the schools that are located in the areas that's near Williamson and Davidson, where the pay rates are higher, you know, they're always going to, if there's not a job the evening of, they're going to sub in several different counties, districts, and they'll take those jobs first if they are paying higher. And so, and I don't know why they would, but I mean, I like Rutherford County myself. Our staff lives in Rutherford County that runs our office. Miss Mary Johnson, her son attends Blackman High. He plays rugby. Miss Kayla Hackett, her family's from here. She's a graduate of Oakland High School. I mean, we hire people locally because they have a passion for your schools too, as we do. And so our goal is to implement programs and strategies to increase the sub pool. This year alone, this semester since school started, you guys hired over 100 people since school started. And we've hired 296 just since August. That's a lot of people. We have paid background checks for 1,800 people in just the last 2 years, not 3 years, the last 2 years. Background checks and drug tests, because we know people can't afford it. People can't afford to pay for a background check and a drug test. They can't. So we try to eliminate all the barriers to make sure that we can get them in. We work with all the local colleges. We attend all the job fairs. We were in that parade that was like 27 degrees. And we ended up, I was so happy the second week of January, we hired 12 people, and you hired 10. From us. The second week of January, we had a profit of 2. So, I mean, and that was great. We just continue on. And I know it may not sound, 95 may sound low, but if you're looking at it, it's consistency. It's not a high at the beginning of the month and a low at the end of the month. It's consistent. And we've only had to pay the penalty one time of the 97. We have not fallen below that, but once since we've been a partner with you.
I don't do it as often. Well, I do it fairly often. I don't remember to check back
consistently enough. One day again last week, the week before, with this on my mind, so I signed in at 310 or 320, and there's a graph that shows two different, the jobs filled and the jobs requested almost touched on the graph. I looked at 410, there was that's what y'all are doing. Those are those are when you start putting, and then some mornings I will remember to sign in at around 7:10, and the gap keeps growing. Those are the ones that are just extremely difficult to fill.
With our 25 premier, we get them assigned by 6:30. We have 30 more absences than we had when we started, before we assigned to 25. But we work consistently all the way to noon. We have a team of people who call all the way to noon to make sure. And then we have people starting again at 3 p.m. all the way to 5. So.
Well, on the redesigned screen, I noticed there's a count of how many non-responses you get in the calls. I think I saw 1,200 this morning or yesterday. Calls that have been made with no response in the number.
It's easy to ignore the calling system. It's hard to ignore us when we keep calling and texting, because it's a texting generation.
Yeah.
And we text, we call, and we email.
I'm going to have to add, from my perspective, being a principal, knowing how challenging it is, there's two things that you're combating here. Mr. Young, I would love for us to have 100% fill rate, and I think we should strive for that. But you've got a couple of things you've mentioned, both of you have mentioned it. Number one, we're having to compete with some of our surrounding areas because of the what we're paying for our subs. I think we would all agree with that, especially Williamson County and so forth. And we are having we're having some what I call life happens moments, where a teacher calls in after 7, and when the larger you get as a system, you're going to have these kind of things happen. And I do applaud you guys for for this what you showed. We should strive to be 100%. Right. And those are some things I think that we can work through as we look at this. One of the things we probably need to look at is what we're paying for subs, and do a comparative analysis of that in terms of what would attract them. I'm like you. I don't know why you want to go anywhere but Rutherford County, but some people do. But perhaps maybe there's something we could do that maybe not go way overboard, but perhaps maybe make them think, instead of burning my gas going to Williamson County or Metro Davidson County, or Murfreesboro City, then I can stay in Rutherford County.
A couple more questions. So, Mr. Sandvik, it wasn't mentioned on here. Is the pricing the same?
Pricing is essentially.
Absolutely. And it includes everything. The calling system includes everything.
Okay. And I hate to bring this up, but I don't remember the specific details, but I know a while back there was something that had come out in a communication piece to us about PESG struggling to meet a payroll. I don't know that it was here. It may have been at one of your other operations. Can you speak to that and just perhaps give us some reassurance about financial solvency and ability to meet payroll?
As Dr. Anthony and Mr. Sandvik can attest to, we've never had any problems making payroll.
So is this another operation?
This is another operation with another company, and it is up north, and it wasn't here. And our southeastern program is very successful. It's very strong. We're not having any issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Bledsoe explained it as he was having challenges, some of the struggling districts. He was having challenges getting paid on
a timely basis to pay the subs. The markup is not that high. And he decided to shut down that subsidiary or the operation of that state. But Tennessee is a separate corporation.
It is. And so is Alabama and Florida.
They were set up that way as y'all started concentrating on business in the South.
So is Mr. Bledsoe still with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He would have been here tonight. He was, his wife is in 4th stage cancer, and she's, yes, and they were very blessed that she made it to Christmas. So he would have been here, and if Mr. Sandvik would have said come, he would have said he'd been all right here. But Mr. Sandvik thought, as I do operations, I would be able to answer your questions. But if you want him here, oh, he lives right over here in, Nolensville. He lives in Rutherford County. His grandkids go to school in Rutherford County. So we're vested in Rutherford County. Our
Don't need him here, just want to be sure, just give him our best, okay?
I will, thank you. I'll let him know. Anything
I've
else?
got a couple of comments,
Yes,
maybe questions. When I saw this on the agenda, I called 6 of our principals. I'll have to say your scores went from pretty high to pretty low between principals. Seems that elementary principals were happier than high school. Now, I understand that, well, I can't understand why anybody would want to stay in a classroom with a 14, 15, 16-year-old all day, but been there and done that, and it's not always an easy job, especially for a sub. But what could you do to make those unhappy principals that their fill rate's not getting up and hadn't been all year for them better?
Well, we just started the $30 a day. So for the permanent subs, we have 6 permanent subs at Laverne High. So we have 2 at Oakland, we have 2 at Stewart's Creek, and if we need more, we are in contact with the principals and say, how many do you want? How many do you need? Because we will, we'll hire what we need in that school. We just, for like Laverne Middle, we're down to 1 permanent sub because we had 6, and they've been hired. Because once you have a sub in your building that you absolutely love and loves your children, you're going to hire them. So we're always hiring more permanent subs and more premier subs. And we are in contact with them. This is the first year that Oakland High has ever had permanent subs. And so the principal said, I feel like I could benefit from that. And it's been very beneficial. He's not asked for any more. First year that we've had Stewart's Creek High that's had permanent subs. So I really do believe that those things, as they're coming on, we didn't start the year out with permanent subs. We've started up to 28 now. Let's not count premier, that's just the permanent subs. And we will hire more as the principals make the need known.
Okay, one of the other, well, I had 2 other. One is there's too many emails.
Yes, there are emails, I know.
And the other one is when a teacher, say, I'm teaching a class and I want Mr. Young here to take my class and he agrees to do it, sometimes that sub, he gets knocked off of my job. Now, I don't know how your system works, but I know that's irritating to the teacher.
And it can be, and how our system works is the teacher creates the absence. They choose the sub they want for their job. It asks the question, has this sub agreed to work for you? And you say yes. If you say no, it's going to call that person 3 times, and then it's going to go to the sub pool, because our focus is to fill the job. We want to offer it to the person that the teacher wants, but the longer that job is out there, the harder it is to fill. So one of the things we do work with them with training, and we do have handouts that we send, choose yes. If that teacher has agreed to work for you, it automatically sends an email to their calendar, and it posts directly into their calendar. So when they open it up, it shows the jobs that they have scheduled. And the emails, I believe in communication. Now, I can shut down some of those emails if they don't want them. But what the emails do is when a job is created, the principal receives a notice, the secretary receives a notice, the vice principal receives a notice. When the job is filled, they all receive a notice. If something happens and school is let out early, they all receive another notice. Anything that happens to that job, it is communicated to them so they are made aware of what's going on in their building.
Okay.
And if they don't want all of them, I can at least take off a couple. Especially if you have 18 people out, that might be a lot of emails.
Anybody else?
We've been discussing this problem, attendance in general, for students and teachers and perhaps others, for a long, long time. And I was really interested in what Mr. Young had to say, and the rest of you too, for that matter. When y'all started, if I remember correct, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, when we really got into this. I believe the fill rate was at 88%. I believe I'm right on that. So now we're at 95 on average.
We ended the year at 97.5 last year.
Exactly what I said, 97.5. And we, at the beginning of this process, I believe we were promised 97. So now, I definitely agree with. Well, I think in this room right now, just kind of looking around what I know about these people, we've got about 6 or 7 either former assistant principals or former principals, including our director, and I believe they would all attest to the fact that if you don't have a teacher in a classroom when that first bell rings, you got a problem. And I hated to hear it as an assistant principal because I knew who was going to have to do the work. And but there was, you know, I won't go into all that, but it's no fun. Now, and also, I think we at least need to mention that we're also losing instruction, which is actually why we opened the door in the first place.
Yes, sir.
So we want qualified people there on time and ready to go, obviously, and plans for them to follow through. And to kind of echo a little bit about what Mr. Young kind of hinted at there, if we're going to get from 97.5 to 100%, I think it's going to take more than just one thing, like an extra $5 or $10, which I would support, I think, or a better job on y'all's part, maybe more attention to some school, I don't know. I think we're going to have to, because as we've repeatedly mentioned here, and then I'll shut up, but repeatedly over the last years, attendance is not looked at as important as it used to be looked at. And that's, I think, pretty obvious. But we even asked the Chamber of Commerce that when they were here on another matter entirely. And it was a constant problem with them and businesses, was the attendance of the employees. Okay, I'm being quiet there. Oh, the contract, this contract that we are going to look at here eventually, either tomorrow or, I kind of agree with Ms. Moore, I want more information, but next time, is for 1 year with a 2-year option?
2 years.
Okay.
2 additional years that the board can elect.
Okay, because I don't know where I got the impression that it was going to be a 2-year contract with a 2-year option, because I wouldn't support that. Okay, thank you.
And I should be able to get copies.
I don't think we have enough of the bound ones, but I should be able to get copies to y'all tomorrow. And then we will just put this back on the agenda at our next board meeting.
The dollars on those RFPs, and I know we're going to see it, but like as far as those 3 finalists, the candidates, was the bidding comparable to what we're paying? Was there anybody that came in lower?
Oh, yes. Spur came in lowest. We had some concerns.
They really push cell phone apps as what they use to fill.
So was that one of the ones that didn't do face-to-face?
Yes, they were all.
Okay, yeah, no, not
You know,
interested.
Yeah, and I believe that may have been
One of the ones where we had to, they assumed that we owned our sub-software. Yeah, e-school.
If I might ask another question, I'm sorry. I think you said you had 2 permanent subs at Oakland High School?
2, yes.
Is that right? And this is a new thing for them? They haven't had that
This is new
before?
this year. I think they started in October, November.
Okay, well, educate me here. Does that mean that at 7:45, that person is sitting in the Oakland lobby?
Absolutely.
Ready to go to work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
With $30 a day more?
$30 a day more.
Okay.
That PS is paying out of pocket.
There we
Must
are.
be easy, staff easy.
There we are.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And I brought the little list of all of them, where they're at and what they're doing. I keep up with them.
Well, that means a lot.
It does.
If that assistant principal or whoever is in charge of that can go out in the lobby and say, Miss Smith, we need you down in chemistry right now. It's an emergency. and that person's sitting there. And but I think that's terrific.
And one of the things with invoicing is to make sure it's tied to a confirmation number. They'll stay there until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and if they don't need them, we'll move them somewhere else. Because you have to justify it for dollars to a job, tie it to a teacher, and we do that.
I want to keep this going, but Dr. Anthony, permanent subs this year, you know, where we've had someone had to leave, have we had an increase in that, you know, where we've had more permanent subs in the classroom?
Right, you're talking about with teacher leaves, that may not be an interim, or there'll be a situation where we need someone on a more than, let's say, 2 or 3 day basis.
And that can impact your fill rate, especially if those permanent subs are out. I mean, so you know, it's a lot of moving parts with this substituting when you're dealing with teachers. I know we've had a couple of instances through this year where a teacher abruptly got a job in another field or left and relocated, and that can add up over time. I mean, in terms of when you're looking across 47 schools. So it can be problematic. So we applaud you for trying to address those things like that.
One of the things that was a big surprise to me is the number of vacancies that we are covering
throughout the year. I expected to see a lot at the beginning of the year. The first year we went with ESG. And I'm not opinion on the previous provider, but I see a different level of detail with the way we're doing it now. And it drops, but we will always have several vacancies that Dr. Anthony goes in. And that's what we're talking about. Right. And then in addition to that, and this is one of the complications we have, is if we are dealing with a certified sub and the teacher doesn't have leave days, or for some of our more crucial positions, we will then temporarily hire that sub away, and that sub will be our interim teacher, paid on the teacher's schedule. And then at the end of that interim, if he or she does not get an interim, they go back to PESG. It's going to happen more times than you think.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll move on to student information.
All right, student information system. Our current student information system, iNow, will not meet the Tennessee Department of Education Edify data transmission requirements next year. Tennessee school districts currently using Chalkable student information systems, iNow, must select a new SIS vendor. After meeting with and reviewing the 4 state-approved vendors, the recommendation is to select Skyward. The cost to migrate all data from iNow to Skyward, beginning with the 2006-2007 school year to the present, including implementation and training for the district, is $256,125. The per cost for 2019-20 is $4.25 per student based on the ADM of $45,844 for the total cost of $194,837. The cost for year 2 and year 3 will not exceed $4.50 per student. Included in the contract is an LMS API at the cost of $11,461. The LMS API will be used to facilitate data transmission between the student management system and a third-party application learning management system used by the district. The total cost for the 2019-20 school year is $206,298. You know, our system, we depend on it in a couple of ways. Obviously, making sure that we get our ADM correct as it's uploaded to the state, as it interfaces with the state. The iNow it's been problematic, and Mr. Dubbers can talk a little bit about it here in a minute. And it was purchased a couple of years ago, perhaps maybe by Power School, and they kind of swept it up, and they've kind of purged off everything and got it to where it's really not functional. Not only that, but we also have our accountability piece that we do. Like for in high school, we have these tracking certifications in career and technical education, along with dual enrollment courses from our universities and our post-secondary institutions. It's important and imperative in order for us to meet the requirements of accountability that these two interface with our state system. And it sounds like, you know, it is a lot of money, to be honest with you, but the alternative is losing a lot of money. And I'm going to have Mr. Delbridge come up and explain the process, what we did in terms of the committee and so forth. And vetting Skyward, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Spurlock. We spent quite a bit of time. This was something that we didn't have a choice. Power School did buy Chalkable. The state was moving. They have been using EIS as their data transmission format. It's a 20-year-old program. They admit that that program is outdated. They're moving to Ed5, which is a standardized process, so that all of the educational applications that the state uses, much of it's dealing with accountability, all type of accountability that the whole school system's responsible for. They're moving to that. Chalkable was struggling with Ed 5 1.3. Power School opted not to continue supporting that, and they have hired off several of their key customer service people for their new program. So they basically killed off the Chalkable so that we can't use it. So all the districts that were using that are forced to select another vendor. We looked at the 4 vendors that were approved by the state. My department met with each vendor for, we called them in, met with them for at least 4 hours apiece with the folks in my department. We had the technology department meet with them, looking at third-party integrations being a key component. We have about 30, I'd say 30, roughly 30 third-party integrations that use information out of our system to roster programs, remediation programs, universal screeners, textbooks, learning management systems. So we had technology look at those programs. We called in 3 of the 4 again and spent approximately 4 more hours apiece with those folks, ourselves in a small group. Mr. Spurlock felt like it was important to get people from throughout the district to come in and review the vendors. So we made a voluntary, well, first we selected a team of what will end up being a trainer. We have very capable people in this district to help reduce the costs. So we're going to go with a trainer program where the vendor we select will come in, train a key group of, I'm going to call them power users. Those folks are very educated and proficient in what they do. So they committed, their principals allowed them to commit to staying for the 2 days and review the 4 vendors, 2.5 hours each. So we then invited the principals or their designees to come in and review, sit through the vendor reviews. We invited all 4, to be fair, to come in and present. We gathered feedback from those folks. That we narrowed it down to about 2 vendors. Again, got with Steve's department and met with them again, went through each third-party integration individually and talked to their technology department a second time and a third time for some to make sure they could guarantee that they could accommodate what a district this size needs. Along the way, my department, I created basically a review sheet, and we called multiple districts from each vendor throughout the state of Tennessee and went through the review, asking them questions to try to get feedback from those that were using the vendors currently. Taking all that information that we gathered together, looking at the size districts that they had been serving, consider the importance of being able to accurately transmit the data from our district, which is the 4th largest in the state, to the state of Tennessee. That's where our funding comes from. I mean, that's any minutes missing out of a student's schedule, any hang up in a student's schedule causes us the potential to lose hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars if it's not done correctly. So looking at that, the reputation, the ratings from all the different districts that we talked to, looking at the history of the number of districts they service, the size of the districts that they were used to working with, the customer service capabilities that they had, and also, like I said, the third-party ability to integrate what we have currently plus what we have coming up in the foreseeable future. Talked to Mr. Spurlock, and the recommendation is to go with Skyward. They have an extremely strong reputation throughout the state. They actually have the most districts and we did not receive a negative rating on them whatsoever. So we feel very confident that they have what it'll take to handle our needs with a district this size for the next several years. Now, we also worked with them. It's in your packet. Skyward, even though they have the most districts in the state, are and have been historically the most expensive vendor in the state. The last 5 years, their contract price per student's been at $5.25 per student. It was important to them to do business with a district our size and bring them on board. And so you can see that they have given us a better price for the first year than the rest of the vendors. Their data migration price has been a state contracted at $5 per student, which runs the price up tremendously when you have the number of students that we have. And if you notice on that contract sheet, they've also reduced that cost to us also. So it's, we're a district they'd like to bring into their lineup, and we got a substantial discount. Data migration is high, but you have to keep in mind, we're going to bring in, they have committed to bringing in every piece of information that we have in iNow. We're talking about discipline, attendance, report card grades, transcripts, all of that information going back to 2006, 2007, that is a ton of information. So it's a big investment, but with a district our size, with what's at stake, that's our recommendation.
And Mr. Sandvig, to kind of enlighten our new board members about through the BEP what we're getting per student for this. Is it what one? Is it $1.50, $1.75, or am I too high?
Well, it's been $1.95.
Okay, I'm low then.
But in next year's budget, I am putting a smaller reimbursement because there's been talk of shaving back on that reimbursement.
Oh, okay. So there's some of that $7,300 that we could get back to help fund that. Okay, all right, I got it.
Any questions?
One of the things that we're setting up a meeting for week after next on,
one of the changes that has flowed down from the state level is juvenile detention. It now flows through our attendance stats and the BEP calculation. Just another example of something that has to be coordinated with, can't think of the names of any of the folks in juvenile detention. That ultimately affects our funding. We have to provide the service. We're dependent on Mr. Delbridge's staff and that software to get it.
Correct. What a lot of folks don't understand is it comes out of the attendance department, but that SIS system, information system, is not just attendance anymore. When you look at state accountability, just about every piece of accountability, whether it's you're looking at the Atlas, whether you're looking at special education, whether you're looking at EPSOs, all of that information goes into the SIS and has to be transmitted accurately to the state. What goes into, with CIS right now, what eventually will be into EdFi, what goes into that is what they report back. If it's wrong going in, is wrong coming out. Grad rates, early graduates, all of that stuff flows through there. So it's not just attendance anymore. It's a data system. And it's, with a district our size, there's a lot of information that needs to get there correctly. So, question?
Elbridge, and I'm sure all of this was looked at, but just out of, concern for the level of concern that's out there these days in terms of privacy and security and protection of these children's records, can you kind of talk through what was presented in terms of that, and did this particular vendor that we've selected outshine the others in that area, or?
All the vendors that are approved by the state are on a state master contract. So the state sets the guidelines and they negotiate that periodically. So all the vendors that we're able to do business with have to meet those security standards set up through the State Department of Education to even be eligible. So they have a master contract, and then we have an addendum that we work off of what they've agreed to with the state. Now, they're currently negotiating. We're working under an extension from, they had a 3-year contract. They've extended it 2 more years with Chalkable, with what we're doing now. They're currently renegotiating a contract that all vendors will agree to. Prices may be different, but the security is embedded in those state contracts.
I just hope our State Department of Ed did a better job in selecting these vendors than the ones that do our testing, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
It's okay.
If I may, what are the third-party applications? I, too, am very worried about all the data collection and that maybe some of the data that might be sold once it leaves us. I don't like that. I think, our parents think that their information stays here and that it doesn't travel around the state. So I'm very wary of something like that being sold to a third party.
Those third-party vendors have security agreements in it, and I might let Steve address that more specifically, since Mr. Solomon, that falls under his department as far as security of data going out.
Student information systems that are approved by the State Department are all cloud-based, meaning they are storing all their data on their servers and their equipment. There are guidelines across the country that they must meet, and it's federal guidelines. You may be familiar with FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, so they meet those standards. They also meet the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So those are just some of the federal standards that they have to meet, but on top of that, they'll exceed those standards as well on the privacy of the information. And that's one thing they talked about, was not just the security of the information, but also the privacy of the information.
Is that something that the parents will know? Will they be notified that their information is going to go? I don't know, is that something that's in our policy that our parents know about?
I mean, all of our student management systems are under federal guidelines and state guidelines. I mean, this is no different than Chalkable. All this is, is protected. I mean, this is not like we're taking something that hasn't been approved by the State Department of Ed. And in fact, there are stringent requirements that would exclude a lot of.
That is correct.
No offense to y'all at all, but I don't have a lot of trust in the FERPA laws. So having read them and having a student that was in the public schools. So just wanted to know. Thank you.
It's not different than what we've been doing. It's just a different company that we're dealing with it. And it's the same company that's been doing business with us for a long time, so.
You know, one of the things that, the issues that we've had with student management services is not breach of any kind of, is the incorrect, as it's it integrates with the State Department of Ed. You know, and what we end up doing is, for example, if we get back information on how many do they have us credit, how many EPSOs do they have us credited with our students, then we have to go back and retrace everything because of the integration has not been seamless. And this can, and there's a tight window too as far as doing your appeals. And this can be kind of tricky because the state, they have a timeline that they stick to now when it involves on their part. So, you know, I think obviously we didn't have any choice with getting rid of Chalkable or being exited from there. Skyward's got, like I said, it's got a good reputation around the state of Tennessee. One of the things too was we were looking at, and I'll be brief with this, is the cost. And Mr. Delbridge was very upfront with me. He said, you know, that training is a lot, you know, and I started looking at it, you know, and I think we need training, but I don't want to fly a bunch of people in here periodically, pay their hotel accommodations and also their per diems daily. So what I said, let's streamline it, let's train the trainer, and let's use the staff and the expertise that we have within our system. Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, we need to back up here a minute. Your chairman has messed up. Go back to number 7.
All right.
On the agenda for
recognition.
Recognition. The chairman was doing his own thinking, and that doesn't always work good.
I think they wanted to sit out there and listen to the rest of the board meeting. I think that's what it was. But anyway, recognition. In recognition of the Athletic Training Month, Rutherford County Schools would also like to acknowledge our athletic training staff. These athletic trainers are part of the Rutherford County Schools' commitment to keeping our athletes safe and healthy. Athletic trainers are on our campus daily and have saved thousands of instructional hours by doing an on-site injury evaluation and treatments with our athletes. They provide a peace of mind to parents, coaches, and administrators knowing they are licensed medical professionals at their side. And at this time, I'd like to call up the supervisor, Mr. Brad Rowling. He'd come up and introduce the trainers.
We had to move to tonight based on a bunch of games tomorrow night. So if you guys will stand up and say what school you're at. Start with you, Josh.
Jones, I'm at Siegel High School.
Everett Belleville, I'm at Smyrna High School.
Kelly Stevens, I'm at Blackburn High School. Tiffany Conley, I'm at Laverne High School. Emily Spears, I'm at Stewart Creek High School.
Kevin Wolf, I'm at Eagleville School.
So thank you to the board for recognizing our staff and everything they do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry you had to get more information than you wanted.
Now you know all about substitutes that you want to know, right? Right.
All right. GPS budget amendment.
Okay. All right. Let me get
Page 8.
GPS budget amendment for attendance data conversion. The amendment funds $256,125 for data conversion costs the system will have when we change to a new attendance system that will need to be in place for 2019-20. Staying with our existing system will not be an option. However, the conversion cost needs to be in place by April so that the system switchover can be completed before the school starts. The funding source is unexpended but already budgeted dollars for our on-job injury program, account 72-310-513. The conversion cost will be in addition to the account 72-110-399, attendance contracted services.
Any questions? This does come out of Mr. Solomon's budget, doesn't it?
Should.
Not sure. What generated the need for this change? Another $250,000 hit.
Go ahead.
we're wanting to get a start on the training for the
attendance system, previous item we discussed. This is the training
part.
and conversion costs. Yeah.
I was looking at that on the job injury. Okay.
Right,
Thank you.
yeah. On job injury, actually, our experiences have been good enough that last year, they only had to pay half of the budgeted premium and made the same, our reserves were still good enough on our side. And so we had that money available, and I thought it would be a good source rather than fund balance, keep the commission.
Any other questions? All right, medical insurance rates.
All right, history of moving spouses with coverage off our plan. In 2016-17 general purpose school budget, we were able to budget just over 10% savings in medical insurance for the second half of the year. The plan changes become effective in January for the second half of the year of the fiscal year. In addition to an overall rate increase that was 4% versus 12%, we planned that 20% of these spouses would leave our plan. The actual number of spouses leaving our plan was closer to 50%. We ended up savings of about $3,968,000 in the second half of the fiscal 2016-17 year. That was attributed to the lower rate increase and spouses moving off the plan. $41,968,000 versus $38 million. So that was for information only.
Well, and you also, y'all have the two colored pages are the insurance records.
Any questions on this? No questions, we're going to move on.
Mr. Chairman, actually, I'm sorry, I do. Just a question for Mr. Sandvig or Dr. Anthony. I know at the last commission meeting or the last insurance committee meeting, this was a hot topic again, the whole removing the spouses. Has anything else happened, or has there been any further conversation that you're aware of about that being changed?
Not that we're aware of, but the next insurance committee meeting is
Next Thursday during spring break at 1 o'clock, and Jeff and I will be there.
Okay. I won't be able to be there, obviously, because we'll be at a conference, so love to have the chance to talk about it a little bit before you go. Thank you.
Mr. Sandvig, did you give us a breakdown, or maybe you, Dr. Anthony did, a couple of months back on the percentage on the different plans? Where's the majority of our employees? What plan are they on?
I
I thought I heard that sometime.
And this won't have federal
Projects,
Right.
cafeteria in it. This is your GPS budget number. But we did have a major shift off the deductible plan, which is the highest one, which has had adverse claim history. So I don't want to find. Yes, that's not okay. For our certified and our salaried staff, we have 1,281. This was as of January. On the, I haven't added that way, I'm sorry. That was a total add for category. We have the fewest people on the deductible plan now. The shift off the deductible plan was about 50-50, some to the copay, some to the HRA. And the HRA plan is now our largest participation.
We are moving in that direction.
Yes, sir. And then the copay plan, and we we have less than 500 left on the deductible plan among teachers.
So as we're going from some increases along with the decrease in the board's portion of the insurance, we're seeing more of a shift.
Right. And when you think of a decrease, and it is an absolute decrease, but still, since we are paying this effective January 82 to 100%, whatever the rate is, whatever the increase is, we pay the lion's share of it, at least 82% of the increase. But that percentage that we pay for family coverage next year will drop to 81% in January, family independent coverage. And the year after that, it will drop to 80, which is what the target the commission set several years.
So we're about a year or two out.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't mean they can't do the same thing again, since I was there the first time. I mean, they can set a goal of 78 or 79. I beg your pardon?
Are you speaking as a former commissioner?
No, I'm just stating the fact that we get to 80 doesn't mean 79 is not right around the corner.
But that action that was taken, I think we were at about 87%.
Right, that's exactly right.
Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to capital projects.
All right. Capital projects request, maintenance is requesting to reallocate the $500,000 to capital projects funds for the chiller replacement for Central Magnet to Blackman High School. Now the two chillers at Blackman are nearing failure, and maintenance believes that they can delay the request for Central until 2019-20 budget year. This request will also have to be approved by the county commission. Got a phone call, I think it was, maybe it was it a phone call or a text message? It started with a text, followed up by a phone. Can you call me? You don't ever want to hear those things, okay? But I think both chillers at Blackman High School went out sometime, was it Friday night? Mm-hmm.
Sunday, maintenance sent a crew in. We were able to take parts from both chillers to get one chiller back up and running. We presently have one chiller running. This time of year, we can limp along because of the weather. It's not real hot. We can get by with one chiller for a little while. But it'll take us 3 to 4 weeks to bid it out, get the company on board, and then it'll take them probably 4 to 6 weeks because they're custom made. They're not sitting on the shelf. So this is a long process, and we're going to try and keep one. We're going to try and get the other one back up, but we need to shift this money from Central to Blackman.
I think there was some kind of program that night, was there not?
That was the Navy band was here playing a special concert at Blackman that night. The way we found out that we had lost the chillers, one of our maintenance employees, who happens to be an HVAC guy, was at that concert, or we wouldn't have found out till Monday. And he noticed that it kept getting hotter and hotter and stuffier, and he slipped out to go see if there was something he could do. When he realized that the chiller was out, he immediately called Kenneth in maintenance, and Kenneth called me.
Mr. Lee, I will certainly vote for this and recognize the need tomorrow night. That doesn't mean that I'm just thrilled to death, but neither are you, I don't guess. But would you take just a minute, please? And since you and I have had some conversations recently, and with the leadership at Central, and explain what Central needs, just briefly. Yes, sir. Air conditioning and heat, whatever.
Central Magnet presently is what we call a two-pipe system. It's either getting heat or it gets air. It does not get both. We presently have 2 other campuses, schools that are in the same position. Smyrna Elementary, and also John Coleman Annex. And with a two-pipe system, you run the heat in the winter, which is a cooling tower. And then you go as long as you can go in the spring before you turn on the air. Because it's a day process to shut it down, it's a day process to bring the other up. And when you make this changeover, you don't change it back till the next fall. So even with Central and Smyrna Elementary, the heating equipment and some of the majority of the air conditioning equipment is original to the facility. So
Original, you mean like 1949?
yes. So
What kind of money's worth on that, didn't we?
well, the problem is you can't get parts for them anymore.
Right.
And the parts that we are working on, fortunately, we have some local businesses here in town that can still rework, rewind motors, remake things, make parts. The other side to it is they're not as efficient. So they're fairly inefficient. So we're quickly coming to a fork in the road where there's going to have to be a decision made on where we go with replacement HVAC systems for these campuses.
I might add, Mr. Lee and I had a pretty long conversation, and we're going to put something on the agenda for the first board meeting in April, right?
For what?
To discuss our HVAC system.
I did it for my benefit as much. We've kind of done an inventory of where we are and what we've got and what kind of decisions we've got. Information that you folks are going to need to make some tough decisions over the next couple of years. So kind of like when we had the meeting on Saturday to kind of tell you, the new board members, what we all do. We're going to kind of bring you guys up to speed on what the state of our facilities are and the equipment that's there supporting our children.
So, does moving this money that was designated or earmarked for a chiller replacement central magnet to Blackman, is that going to leave Central without any air? Or walk me through that.
Them along so that I can put $500,000 in next year's budget, this upcoming budget, to change out the chiller there.
Do they just have one? Is there just one chiller there? So what happens if it just takes its last breath between now and then?
Based on the condition that it's in, the HVAC department in maintenance is more confident that Blackman's going to die first.
But I'm not really answering my question.
I can't predict how long it's going to last. We think it will last through this school year and into the summer.
Well, and I apologize, Mr. Lee, that really probably wasn't a question best directed to you. It's a more of a financial question of,
Right.
okay, so what if,
Right.
you know?
I think we have no choice. If it goes out, we go, right.
So would we go ahead and spend the money on another chiller and leave it on that archaic two-pipe system versus going ahead and biting the bullet and putting a real
All that would be
up-to-date system?
predicated on when it happens, when it occurs, what the weather's like, how far we are to the end of the school year. Yeah.
The other part of your question is going to be part of the information that we're going to be presenting
Mm-hmm.
to be able to make a better educated decision.
Hopefully we'll get to opportunities.
Well, we're hopeful and optimistic that it's going to last us through the end of the school year.
What you're really saying here, just I must make sure that we're kind of clear, and I'm certainly willing to wait till April, and I appreciate you doing what you do, which is leading. But if you got a 70, 80 degree day in January, which actually we've had, you don't go in and turn on the air because you can't go back. So you are, well, you're hot, aren't you? That's what you are, maybe.
I would say it would be maybe 74 in the building instead of
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If we had 2 or 3 or 4 days in a row like that,
Maybe be 75.
Anyone else? All right, let's move on to Rocky Fork
Okay,
Middle School softball dugout.
Rocky Fork Middle School softball dugouts. The staff of Rocky Fork Middle School is requesting to begin construction of concrete block dugouts with one to have a storage facility as part of the structure. This request is similar to construction design of other middle school dugouts. Rocky Fork Middle was approved October the 8th, 2018 for the baseball dugouts. Engineering and Construction has reviewed this request and finds it acceptable. The project cost for this is $10,580 and is at no cost to the board.
Well, that's a nice addition. What's number 14?
All right, number 14, the purchase of property for connection to Holly Grove Road from the Matthews property. County Commission has previously approved the purchase of the Matthews property in Walter Hill for a new multi-school site. It would be beneficial for ingress and egress to the site to have a secondary access point to the site from Holly Grove Road. Sanford Campbell and Dolores Campbell, adjoining owners to the Matthews property, have agreed to sell a 100-foot wide strip to the Board of Education to allow connection to the road from the school site to Holly Grove Road. The 100-foot wide strip will consist of approximately 2.75 acres, more or less, and the purchase price would be at $42,500 per acre. This is the same price as the Matthews are being paid for their property.
Any questions? All right. General information.
All right, Mr. Lee and some of the coordinators, we all obviously looking at the Rockville cluster, and as we were going through, talking to transportation, because there's a lot of things that it entails, not just the opening and trying to reduce the amount of traffic. But anyway, these are the times that we came up for the Rockville school cluster. These are some changes. Rockville Elementary would be from 7:30 to 2:30 p.m. Rockville Middle would be from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Rockville High would be from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Bell times for the following schools have been adjusted due to continued increased enrollment and difficulties with transportation routes. This will not completely solve the zoned areas, but it will help. Barfield will go from now to 7:30 to 2:30 p.m., and Riverdale High School will go from 8:30 to 3:30 p.m. Not only are we trying to reduce that, but they're also consistent. We're consistent pretty much throughout the county. Am I correct on that, on the grade bands?
we're trying to keep the elementaries. It helps our bus routing. There's maybe a few that are 7:35, 7:25.
But they're all right there within 5 or 10 minutes of the 7:30. And also, I erred when I put this together. I had a couple of others that I did not get put on there. One of these is not transportation related as far as buses go, but it does affect traffic around the MTSU area. Central Magnet and Homer Pittard are within a block of each other. And because they are choice schools, we provide no transportation, which means everybody's coming in a car. Well, their start times were 5 minutes apart, which put a whole lot of traffic in a 2-block area. So we've talked to Homer Pittard and Ms. King, Dr. King there, and we're proposing to move them similar to other elementaries, 7:30 to 2:30 as well. One other change we're looking to request is Christiana Elementary and Christiana Middle. Presently, they're 5 minutes apart. There's been a lot of traffic concerns there with the road that is adjacent to Christiana Elementary, and how those folks get out on the 231. Over the years that I've been here, we've looked at a lot of different things. Trying to help that situation. There's not enough stacking for the elementary. We've tried stacking them both on the middle school property and re-bringing them back in. There's just not a lot of good ways there. I've talked with transportation today. They feel like it would not adversely affect them They've been basically treating the elementary and the middle basically as one route. They would drop the elementary off first and then drive over to the middle and do the same thing as they pick them up. But we do believe that if we separated them by 30 minutes, it would alleviate the vehicle traffic that's stacking up on that road, which is deterring the neighbors from being able to get to 231 in the afternoons or in the mornings. And that road is fairly narrow, and they're actually pulling out into the other lane trying to pass a number of cars. So we are recommending and requesting to change Christiana Elementary to 7:30 and Christiana Middle to 8, which there again is comparable with the other elementaries and middle schools in the district.
All right, Dr. Anthony, Ms. Sandvig, you got any other insurance updates? Thank you. Director's update.
Yeah, I've got one thing. I want to thank Mr. Lee. You know, many of you were at the commissioners meeting. There was a strong emphasis on, as we build or propose building schools, to work hand in hand with our highway superintendent and our county planners. There was a meeting, I think you met yesterday, with them and along with CUD concerning the property out at Christiana, in the Christiana area. I think it's a great start. I think there was some good conversations came out of it, and there's going to be some additional meetings. Am I correct with that?
Yes, sir. I'm meeting tomorrow with Murfreesboro Water and Sewer and Middle Tennessee Electric. And then once I get that
information and put out some other things that the departments are asking for from us, we're going to meet together again the week following spring break. There's a lot of those guys that have children in our district too, and they're all going on spring break. So we couldn't meet next week, so we're going to schedule a meeting for the first part of the following week, which is part of what the county commission has asked us to do.
You know, and last week, I think, you know, the board, you know, as we went forward with our building program and we proposed the Christiana side, I was very excited that they're listening as far as the funding part of it, and I'm glad they're concerned about our roads. You know, we've got some roads currently around our schools that perhaps maybe are a little bit more problematic than the ones we have out in that area. And I think as the discussion goes forward, I think as we build more schools, if that's the case occurs, then we're going to have a good partnership with our road department.
That's the goal of this, is to work together with them, help them to help us.
Right.
Ms. Johnson, TLN?
Tomorrow night, if that's okay.
Okay. Federal, Mr. Hodge? Thank you, sir. General discussion?
Got a couple of things, Mr. Chairman, if I might. At the commission meeting the other night, where Mr. Clardy and Mr. Spurlock and Mr. Reed was poised. He didn't have to say anything, but he was ready to go. We did, first of all, Wayne Blair was appointed to District 10 and the County Commission. He ought to be a very positive commissioner, I would think, and very well informed. Although there was considerable discussion, and I think there should have been discussion on the Christiana land and also on the Matthews properties to a certain extent. They did approve all of that, and I think there was the only thing that I really didn't particularly agree with, but I think you all you've already said something here today that can give you some hope, and that is that the school board builds schools, select sites. We build schools. We don't build roads, and but I do think that Commissioner Phillips was right when he said the cost of the road is part of the actual cost of the project. He's right about that. I don't think, and he wanted to know what that was. And there was an answer, and the answer was, if I recall, and I do recall, was $4.4 million to bring Christiana up to speed. And Mr. Phillips wanted to know that, what that cost was. I think that was a perfect thing. What I really disagreed with was we have a highway department that does that. That's the guy to ask. And they did ask him. And he had 3 days to answer it, which was impossible, of course. So I think these meetings and contacts with all of these departments is critical. And frankly, I think that they could do a whole lot better job of paying attention and watching, but that we could too. I really believe that we could. We also got as far as I know, all the commissioners signed on to the anti-charter school and voucher resolution. And I assume that was sent to all the legislators. And I think that's a very positive thing for the Rutherford County school children. The other thing I wanted to address, and I'm really not really kidding about this. It sounds like that I am kidding, but I'm really not. At some meeting, somewhere, sometime within the last 3 weeks or so, the mayor of Murfreesboro mentioned that the city might want to get out of the 6th grade business. I was stunned at that news. I think there's about right at 700 of them right now, but he wasn't proposing right now. He was proposing later. And he wasn't really proposing it. He brought it up for discussion. Let's put it that way. That's important. And I think it was brought up for discussion to see if there was support or opposition from other city people. Further discussion. And I think it would behoove us to at least consider that as something that might indeed happen at some point down the line. And I might also point out, and this is where I said I sound like I'm kidding, but I'm really not. We, the Rutherford County taxpayers, and the court case that was settled that we had to send so much money. How much do we send? Is it 17%? About 15% of every dollar we raise for K through 6. Am I right? To the city. It doesn't make any difference if we build it in Eagleville or wherever. Well, we, and not just us, but the board before this, and the board before that, and the board before that, went down before the county commission and begged for this money. And politicked for it, did everything we could to get it. And the city did zero. And then when we get the money, we write them a check. They do nothing. Well, I want my money back. I do. I want part of our money back. If they're not going to use those classrooms that we send them money to buy and build, and they did buy them, and they did build them, and they sent 6th graders to it, and they're going to sit there now where they've got plenty of room to grow on our dollar, partly, I want some of our money back. Now, that may sound like a silly request, and I'm sure that nothing's going to come of it, but I enjoyed making it anyway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Jordan. I sort of agree with that.
Well, thank you.
Anybody else?
Can I say something? I'd like to shout out to my Title I schools. The last 3 weeks, I've visited 6 of them, and if you've never been to one, you need to go to one. I challenge our legislators to go to a Title I spring planning meeting because it really tells you what you need to know. It will really drill down to you how vouchers and how education savings accounts will hurt our schools and hurt our students and hurt our programs. It was grueling to go to all of them with everything else that we have going on, but the principals and the teachers, they love our students. They're there to help our students. I don't think the general population has any idea what our principals and our teachers actually do in that schoolhouse. There are some principals, there are some teachers that are actually helping parents learn to speak English. And those children that come to us who can't speak English, they're getting them up to speed to speak English before they can even teach them. They have lending libraries at most of all the Title I schools. The parents can take books home that are Spanish to English or English to Spanish, so they can read to their children in their native tongue, which helps with literacy. So I just challenge each and every one of you and those that are listening or watching to go to a spring planning session. Even if you're a parent, especially if you're an elected official, they're very informational, and I'm glad I had the time to spend to go. So shout out to all my principals.
Ms. Sharp's absolutely right. If you've never been to one of those, you can get an education quick, Title I. I encourage parents listening to go. So, thank you, Matt. Anybody else? All right. We are adjourned.